The first note hadn't even finished echoing when the room changed. You know that feeling when time slows down for a split second and everyone senses something rare is about to happen? That was the moment. A young man in a simple jacket stood under the lights, eyes closed, mic steady, and before anyone could blink, the audience leaned forward as if pulled by an invisible thread. Stay with this story till the very end, because what happens in the final moments will remind you why dreams are worth chasing, and hey, if moments like this move you. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss stories that make your heart beat a little faster. He came from a small coastal town in the Philippines where radios were old, roads were narrow, and music traveled faster than news. As a child, he would sit on the wooden floor of their home while his father played scratched vinyl records on a second-hand player. One voice always returned like a trusted friend: Elvis Presley. The sound filled the room, bouncing off thin walls, mixing with the smell of rice cooking and the laughter of neighbors outside. To the boy, Elvis wasn't just a singer. He was a doorway. A promise that even from far away, even from a place the world barely noticed, your voice could cross oceans. But dreams are fragile when reality knocks early. His father fell ill when he was still young, and the music stopped for a while. Money became the loudest sound in the house, louder than any song. The boy worked small jobs after school, carrying boxes, cleaning stalls, doing anything to help. At night, when everyone slept, he would hum softly, afraid his voice might wake his worries instead of his family. He practiced in whispers, copying Elvis's phrasing, not to imitate, but to understand how emotion could live inside a note. Years passed, and the boy grew into a man. His town knew him as the guy who sang at birthdays and local fiestas, the one who sounded strangely familiar yet deeply his own. Some clapped. Some smiled politely. Others told him, kindly but firmly, that dreams don't pay bills. There were moments he believed them. Moments when he folded his jacket, put the mic away, and told himself that loving music didn't mean chasing it. The chance came quietly, as chances often do. A friend sent him a message late one night about auditions happening far away, on a stage known for breaking hearts and making legends. He laughed at first. Stages like that were for people with connections, money, confidence. He had none of those. But he had something else: a lifetime of almosts, of silenced songs, of nights where hope was the only thing that stayed awake with him. He borrowed money for the trip, hugged his mother longer than usual, and promised nothing except that he would try. Standing backstage, the noise of the crowd felt like a wave about to crash. He watched other contestants rehearse, voices soaring, outfits shining. Doubt crept in, familiar and sharp. Who was he to stand here? Who was he to sing a song the world already knew by heart? Then he remembered his father tapping his fingers to an old record, his mother smiling even when the days were heavy, and that quiet boy humming into the dark. He stepped forward anyway. When his name was called, he walked onto the stage with steady feet and a trembling heart. The judges looked curious, not impressed, not doubtful, just waiting. He introduced himself simply, his accent carrying the story of where he came from. When asked what he would sing, he paused, then smiled. The song choice was bold. Risky. The kind that could end a journey in seconds or begin something unforgettable. The music started. That first note left his chest like a confession. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't polished. But it was honest. And honesty has a sound you can't fake. Within seconds, the audience felt it. Murmurs turned into silence. Silence turned into something electric. He didn't try to be Elvis. He let Elvis pass through him, shaped by Filipino soul, by struggle, by gratitude. Every lyric carried a piece of his life, every pause held a memory. Then it happened. Before the chorus even finished, someone stood. Then another. Then rows of people rose as if pulled upward by the same emotion. A standing ovation in seconds. The judge's expression shifted from curiosity to surprise, from surprise to respect. One leaned forward, eyes shining. Another smiled wide, shaking their head in disbelief. This wasn't nostalgia. This was revival. As the song reached its peak, his voice cracked, not from weakness, but from feeling. Tears blurred the lights, but he didn't stop. He finished strong, the last note hanging in the air like a promise kept. For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then the room exploded. Cheers, claps, whistles, a roar that wrapped around him and lifted him higher than he had ever been. He stood there, stunned, hands shaking, trying to understand that this was real. That the boy who whispered songs into the night was now being heard by the world. The judges spoke, one by one, not just about his voice, but about his story, his courage, his heart. They said he reminded them why music matters. Why legends are born not from imitation, but from truth. Backstage later, he sat alone for a moment, breathing it all in. He thought of his town, his family, the long road that led here. Winning or losing suddenly felt less important. He had already won something bigger, the right to believe in himself again. The journey didn't end that night. Challenges came, pressure grew, expectations climbed higher. There were critics who compared, who doubted, who said lightning doesn't strike twice. But now he knew something they didn't. He knew what it felt like to stand in fear and sing anyway. He knew that applause fades, but purpose doesn't. In the end, this wasn't just a story about a Filipino Elvis earning a standing ovation. It was about courage showing up unannounced. About roots that travel across oceans. About the idea that your voice, whatever it is, wherever you're from, matters more than you think. And if this story moved you even a little, if it reminded you of a dream you tucked away, take a second to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this deserve to be shared, because somewhere out there, someone is humming in the dark, waiting for the courage to sing out loud. The first note didn't just break the silence, it bent it. Before the echo could even find the walls, the air inside the hall shifted, like the room itself leaned closer to listen. Imagine this, a single spotlight, a quiet breath, a voice that carries more history than the face singing it. If you stay with this story until the very end, you'll understand why some performances don't just earn applause, they change lives. And if stories like this give you goosebumps, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because moments like this deserve to be remembered and shared. He was born far from the big stages, in a modest Filipino town where mornings began with roosters and evenings ended with neighbors talking across open windows. Music was never a luxury there, it was a companion. Radios crackled with old songs, karaoke machines appeared at every celebration, and voices, imperfect but proud, filled the streets. As a child, he didn't dream of fame. He dreamed of sound. Of how a voice could travel farther than feet ever could. His father was the one who introduced him to Elvis Presley. A worn-out cassette, passed down from a relative who once worked overseas, became a treasure. The tape hissed and wobbled, but when Elvis sang, none of that mattered. The boy would sit cross-legged on the floor, eyes wide, absorbing every note. There was something about that voice, strong, aching, fearless. It felt like someone telling the truth out loud. He didn't understand the words fully at first, but he understood the feeling. And feelings, he learned early, don't need translation. Life, however, doesn't pause for dreams. When his father's health began to fail, the house grew quieter. Music still played, but softer now, like it didn't want to interrupt the worry. The boy learned responsibility before he learned confidence. He helped where he could, studied when time allowed, and sang only when no one was listening. Singing felt selfish when bills were due and medicine was needed. So he tucked it away, carefully, like something fragile he might break if he touched too often. Teenage years came with questions and pressure. Friends talked about practical futures, jobs, steady income, safe paths. Whenever he mentioned music, people smiled politely, the way you smile at a child talking about flying. "It's nice as a hobby," they'd say. "But be realistic." He nodded, because arguing felt pointless. Inside, though, something refused to go quiet. Every time he heard an Elvis song, or any song sung with raw emotion, his chest tightened. It was like being called by a name only he could hear. He started singing at small events, birthday parties, local fiestas, neighborhood gatherings. No stage lights, no fancy sound systems. Just a microphone that sometimes worked and an audience that sometimes listened. Some nights, people stopped eating to pay attention. Other nights, his voice blended into the background noise of laughter and clinking plates. Both taught him something. He learned humility from being ignored and strength from being noticed. He learned that singing wasn't about being heard, it was about being honest, even when no one clapped. There were setbacks that nearly ended it all. A failed audition years earlier left him embarrassed and doubtful. He remembered the judges' neutral faces, the quick thank you, the walk back home feeling longer than the road itself. 4 months after, he didn't sing at all. He told himself it was over, that he tried and failed, and that was that. But the silence felt heavier than rejection. Eventually, one night, alone again, he sang. Not for anyone else. Just to remind himself he still could. The opportunity that changed everything didn't arrive with fireworks. It came as a message on his phone from an old friend who believed in him more than he believed in himself. An audition. A big one. The kind people talked about like it belonged to another world. He laughed when he read it. Then he read it again. And again. The idea felt ridiculous and terrifying. He didn't have money. He didn't have connections. All he had was a voice shaped by years of quiet struggle. Deciding to go meant borrowing money, asking for favors, and risking embarrassment on a massive scale. His mother listened silently as he explained. When he finished, she didn't ask about winning or losing. She just said, if you don't go, you'll regret it longer than you'll ever regret trying. That sentence followed him everywhere from that day on. The journey to the audition felt unreal. Airports, crowds, unfamiliar streets, everything moved faster than his thoughts. Backstage, surrounded by confident performers, doubt roared louder than the audience outside. Some contestants warmed up with powerful runs, others practiced choreography. He stood quietly, hands clasped, heart pounding. For a moment, he considered walking away. No one would stop him. No one would blame him. Then he remembered all the times he'd wished for one real chance. This was it. Walking onto the stage, the lights were blinding. He couldn't see the audience clearly, just a sea of shapes and expectation. The judges looked at him with curiosity, not harsh, not kind, just waiting. He introduced himself, voice steady despite the storm inside. When asked about his song choice, he hesitated. Choosing Elvis was a risk. Comparisons could crush him in seconds. But hiding felt worse than failing honestly. The music began, soft and familiar. He took a breath and sang. The first note wasn't perfect, but it was real. And reality has power. The room reacted instantly. Conversations stopped. Phones lowered. Eyes lifted. There was something in his tone that couldn't be taught. It carried longing, gratitude, pain, and hope all at once. He didn't copy Elvis, he channeled the spirit of a man who sang from his soul, filtered through Filipino warmth and resilience. Seconds passed, then something incredible happened. A person in the audience stood. Then another. Like a wave, people rose to their feet. A standing ovation before the song even finished. The judges exchanged looks of surprise. One leaned forward, visibly moved. Another smiled, shaking their head as if witnessing something rare. As he reached the chorus, emotion surged. His voice cracked slightly, and instead of weakening the moment, it strengthened it. The crack told the truth. Tears formed, but he didn't stop. He sang through them, every word landing heavier than the last. When the final note faded, the silence lasted just long enough to feel sacred. Then the applause erupted. It wasn't polite clapping. It was thunderous. People cheered, shouted, cried. He stood there, overwhelmed, hands trembling, trying to understand that this moment, this impossible moment, was his. The judges spoke with honesty and admiration. They talked about bravery, authenticity, and how he reminded them why music matters. One said he didn't just sing a song, he told a story. Backstage, alone for a moment, he finally let himself breathe. Memories rushed in, his father's old cassette, his mother's quiet strength, the nights of whisper singing into darkness. Every step, every doubt, every nearly given up moment had led here. Win or lose, something fundamental had changed. He no longer needed permission to believe in himself. The days that followed weren't easy. Fame brings pressure, expectations, and criticism. Some compared him relentlessly to Elvis. Others doubted his staying power. But he remembered what carried him this far: truth. Each performance after that was rooted in the same honesty. He sang not to impress, but to connect. What made his journey powerful wasn't just talent, it was resilience. He became a symbol to many back home, proof that global dreams can grow from local soil. Kids watched his clips on phones in small houses, eyes wide, hearts racing, just like his once did. In the end, this story isn't only about a Filipino singer earning a standing ovation in seconds. It's about courage rising faster than fear. About honoring your influences without losing yourself. About understanding that sometimes, one brave moment can echo for a lifetime. If this story touched you, if it reminded you of a dream you've been postponing, take a second to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Because somewhere right now, someone is standing on the edge of their own stage, waiting for a sign. Maybe this is it.